Before the Rings of Power, there were the Silmarils. Before Sauron, there was his master Morgoth. Before Aragorn and Arwen, there was Beren and Luthien. Join us as we explore Tolkien and all the ages of Middle-earth with your hosts from theonering.com, Jonathan Watson, Michael Grumbine, and Dan Coates.
Aw, Dan Coates. Michael, Dan's not here again.
Number two.
For week number 2, guys, we are not with Dan Coates. Dan Coates is taking hiatus, as we mentioned last week, and Michael and I are going to be going through every film change in the Lord of the Rings over a certain period of time. I think we'll have some left turns, right turns, some detours into areas that aren't this year, because this is going to take us a while. I have a feeling we'll have somewhere between 200 and 300, and if we do three a week, we're still talking more than a year of this. So
that's two years worth of content. At 3 a week.
So it's going to take us a while, guys, but we're not going to flood you with just this the entire time. We have some interviews. I want to do some books too. In fact, eventually, I feel like I want to do some other non-Tolkien stories, but maybe a C.S. Lewis, like we were talking about, maybe doing the space trilogy at some point. So we're going to jump into some of that too. But this week, we've got actually a relatively thoughtful person that we interviewed. As opposed to last week.
Sorry about that. Last week.
Are you contrasting Tyler? Yeah. So Viggo Mortensen, we had the privilege of interviewing him in the Roundtables on December 2nd, 2003. And this was a very pleasurable interview. He was a nice guy. He was genuine. He was interested. He was thoughtful. And the film, it didn't seem like it changed him. Like I can imagine him being the same guy from before the Lord of the Rings or before being an actor to who he was there. I think I have a lot of difference of personal, moral, political opinions than him, but as a genuinely nice guy, he's somebody you definitely want to hang out with. And so his answers were interesting. His answers were thoughtful. And I mean, he certainly had more life experience than a lot of the folks coming into this here, because he was early 40s, I want to say, like mid 40s when they started filming, probably early 40s when they started filming. So, had a kid, was mature as opposed to maybe some of the other people.
Well, and that's what's funny is that came out in the interview. So one of the things that was asked to him was, how are you handling the fame and stuff and the attention? And his answer was very, very, it was funny because it showed, as you were saying, the reserved nature that he has. So his first answer was, well, I like the group interviews better because then I have cover, because he was talking about how he had a bunch of interviews in Argentina, which is
right.
He had grown up, at least many of the years of his youth were in Argentina, apparently. And he had gone back there and he was, this instant massive star in Argentina, but he was sort of talking a little bit of shell shock in his voice about, going out and just being mobbed by everybody people that had been there for weeks waiting for him to show up.
Yeah,
apparently. So, and then he also made a joke at another time that, all the attention that he gets, he says, well, once my pockets are full of all the phone numbers, I just take one pocket and I give it to Dominic, and the other pocket I give it to Billy, referring to Dominic Monaghan and Billy Boyd, Merry and Pippin. So he essentially, and if you look back at pictures,
boy, but can you imagine the disappointment of those fans after they give it to him, and who do they get? They get friggin'
Merry and Pippin. The
full-on disappointment. Yes.
Yep. But so he's a cool cucumber, man. That was the impression I got coming off of those. He's very, like you said, very reserved and experienced. I knew he had come in late, but I didn't realize how late. He said at one point in the interview that a number of that everybody else had been there for a month or two, practicing the lines. And he replaced, who was the guy who replaced Stuart
Townsend? And they had actually filmed some with him initially, I think, or really initial stuff, really not any large amounts of filming had gone into it. But I think Peter Jackson realized pretty much right away, this isn't going to work. He was, I think, too young. He wasn't rugged enough.
Have you seen any of the B-reel stuff or anything?
I've seen pictures.
Either. I was kind of interested in if it ever came out or not. But anyway, I'm glad they went with an older, more mature Aragorn, because ultimately, though he's not supposed to look his age, Aragorn is, of course, over 70 years old. and at the time. So
yeah. Okay, so here. I'll just read you guys this quote about Stuart Townsend. Actually, you know what? I'm going to read it at the extended or after we listen to this here. We will have an extended.
freeloaders.
Yeah, well, sorry. We will have an extended podcast, though. We're going to go into that after we listen to Viggo Mortensen and the questions that we had for him at this roundtable in December 2003. And so if you want to hear the extended podcast, go to thewarning.com/member, become a member, get access to our Discord, get access to our bi-weekly book club, get access to the extended podcast that lets you hear an extra 15, 20, 30 minutes, depending on how generous we are or how long-winded we are. Or sorry, how long-winded Michael is. I'm super short. I never say.
I take all the blame. Happily.
Yeah. So join us there. But for now, let's listen to this interview with Viggo Mortensen.
He's got his pipe. Muppy.
How are you guys?
Good. All right.
Great. Thank you.
How are you holding up?
Okay. How many interviews have you done?
11? No, the number 11.
Was this the 9th?
Oh, no, this is more.
This is 11.
The number 10.
This is
But of course, you're the most important interview of the day.
Yes, we say that.
Bingo.
So do you say thank you to your son because he was the one who helped you decide, saying yes to that one?
Yeah. I mean, in the sense of doing the best I can with it, or I'll get in trouble with him. Yeah.
What have these films done for your career? I mean, obviously, I don't think from the U.S. or standpoint, you were really on the map, and now you're all over the place, and everybody wants you.
Well, I got to do a movie I like a lot that's coming out in March called You Like Tolkien, and it's about that's the name of the horse having the story. And that's a really, really great story. Really, another sort of heroic journey. It's set in a different time, different kinds of people in it. But some of the ideas are similar in that a challenge is offered, and then it's up to you whether you want to accept that challenge, just like the members of the fellowship do at the Council of Elrond. And then once you've said yes, then you're in a world of trouble until you find a way out of it. And in the same sense as Lord of the Rings, it becomes more important how you handle tough times, just like in life. That's what forges your character. That's what makes for friendships, It's how you handle the journey is more important than whether you get there or not, and it's that kind of story as well. But I certainly would not have been offered that role of Frank Hopkins if I hadn't, if the Fellowship of the Ring hadn't had such a big popular success.
Do you find yourself more recognized on the street or in restaurants or?
A little bit more, Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't get out as much as some of the other guys in this group, so I don't deal with that much. It's only, like say tonight at the premiere, I'm sure they'll be kind of crazy, and the last couple premieres have gotten more and more intense for everyone. Yeah.
But not long ago you went back to Argentina and you were like a national hero for Argentina. I mean,
yeah, that was I got to go on this is a lot nicer because there's a whole bunch of us and we can kind of share I went to Mexico, Brazil, Argentina. Argentina is where I was raised until I was 11. But there I was on my own. So it's kind of, you leave the hotel as a group and then sign some autographs and you all disperse or whatever. But in this case, I would come up by myself and there would be people from the interior of the country who'd been out all night in the rain waiting. It was just incredible the impact that this movie has had everywhere. Japan, when I went earlier this year, it was the same thing. That was, I guess it was January. It seems like it was 3 years ago. So much has happened, but that public reaction has been the same everywhere for us.
Everyone has had a unique answer to this, so I want to ask you too. Your Shire, everyone wants to get back to their Shire, whether it's a moment in time or a place that you felt happy or safe, comfortable. Where is your Shire?
I think most children I think all children are open to playing with anyone. I think you learn to see yourself as different from others and to exclude others from your play, your life. And what this story is about and what the experience of making these movies was about, the way in which we retold this story, was with the idea that we have a hell of a lot more in common with other people than not. So that's a good place to be for me, where you don't really even consider the difference, or you celebrate the difference and then try to find what you have in common in spite of it.
Mm-hmm. That's the theme of the movie. But your personal place, is there a place that you went to as a boy, or like Sean had said that he thinks of a garden. He hasn't found his shire yet, but he thinks it would be a garden somewhere.
I would say that it's not where you are, it's how you are.
Peaceful and comfortable?
Whatever makes you happy.
So, how do you see yourself as a human being or as an actor after this trilogy?
Very lucky.
You don't seem to be a type of guy to go out and seek a mantle of sex symbol, and it's especially with this movie, it's being tossed your way, and I was wondering how you deal with that, or how it has affected you.
Doesn't that happen with every popular movie? If you're almost any.
Yeah, I think it happens a lot. This one, I'm more curious, not that it happens with every movie, but just how it has affected you. Because you just don't seem to be the type who would want to go and seek it out.
Well, every time my pockets get full of strangers' phone numbers, I hand the contents of one pocket to Dominic Monaghan and the other.
Can you talk?
I just assume that Dom and Billy will share those.
Can you talk about how it was to film the battle scenes? I mean, that they had to add all the CGI after you guys filmed that. How was the actual filming?
Well, after the first movie, not that we didn't trust them while we were doing the first, the principal part of the shoot before the first movie came out, but you saw the proof of what Peter was promising would be there. Don't worry, you won't look silly, even though you were talking to all these imaginary things with a green curtain or a blue curtain behind you or in front of you. Mm-hmm. Trust me, it's going to look good, and it did. So by the time we were doing the last of our reshoots, and I was being asked to speak to, thousands of dead people, and, get very involved in their imagined reactions, I trusted Pete. But those were interesting challenges. I mean, I think in the course of making these movies, Peter explored or made use of every trick in the movie-making book, and he invented quite a few along the way, new ones. So it was a really interesting experience technically for me, and I think for the younger actors, in particular those like Orlando who had almost no movie-making experience whatsoever, I think it was a great school. I mean, how lucky, whether the movie ended up doing well or not, just the process of making the movies. They were asked to make a leap of faith every day in some way or another, whether it was the way they looked, or the way they had to speak, the kinds of words they had to say, the things they had to imagine. I mean, it is make-believe at all times, but Peter really stretched the lengths to which you had to make believe. And to get through that, especially for the younger guys or the less experienced actors, was a great accomplishment and sets them up now for dealing with any movie-making experience. I would be surprised if any of them ever on a movie shoot said, "Oh, this is too hard, I can't believe this is so long, or this is so difficult." I mean, you can't really go much further than we did in terms of difficulty and degree of, the challenges in making these movies and the time it took and everything.
You go pretty deep into character on set. How do you come back when it's over?
I don't. I mean, I'm not, you hear a lot about people saying, oh, I want to get rid of that character, or it took me, I don't know, days, weeks, months, years to rid myself of, shed the skin of that character. Or directors who say, well, I just want to move on, but that thing stayed with me, it was a heavy burden, or it wasn't heavy, or whatever. I mean, we're all going to get old and die. We're all going to, if we live long enough, we're going to go forget things. We're going to lose our memories. That's just what happens in life, right? So why be in a hurry to forget something that you learn something from? I mean, which is potentially any movie or any experience. I'm not in a hurry to erase anything.
So how are you a different Viggo than when you started?
I have a lot less brain cells, less probably. No, I mean, it's hard to put that into words. I mean, like, as I've said before, I think that the making the story and getting into what Tolkien was writing about has reinforced my impulse to, at best, see past what seems very different in other people at times and try to find a connection rather than look for separateness.
Where do you want your career to go? What are you looking for in the next script?
No plans, really. I've always I don't think I'll change in the way I run my career, which is not to run it at all. In other words, I look for, I try to find, or hope it finds me, a good story or a challenging story, or I run out of money, and, and that game usually goes the same way 99% of the time, which is I run out of money. And then whatever I'm lucky enough to find to get out of debt or pay the rent is what I do, but I'm not going to probably, it's what I'm comfortable doing, every once in a while you get lucky, every once in a while you get a phone call about a movie in New Zealand.
How was Percival Presto?
Doing very well. We've been able to publish a lot of interesting writers, and have plans for several more interesting books, I think. And I know that Lord of the Rings, doing so well has helped that too. I mean, people have been curious, and it really doesn't matter why they go there, but they'll go to the site, or they might buy a book, or they might go to an exhibition of one of the artists that we publish, and it has a domino effect. I mean, you can make what you want of an experience.
What is the website?
PercivalPress.com, but spelled the French way, Perceval.
If Hidalgo does well and you have a career carrying movies in Hollywood, will be room for more movies in Spanish, or that?
Yeah, I'd like to work I've worked a little bit in Spanish before. I might do something maybe next year in Spain. I'm not sure yet. I don't want to name it just because I'm not sure if it's until it happens. I'm not sure.
Which do you prefer, writing or acting?
I don't really separate them. They feel like similar. They're like branches of the same tree, you know what I mean? They're just different ways of expressing yourself, all of which have to do with being in the moment, with not just walking by and without noticing your surroundings. I think that it's a conscious effort initially, but once you get in the habit of, say, taking a camera with you, whether you use the camera or not, it's the potential that you could is you're already looking at things in a different way. The potential of making a story out of anything or writing something down about it, just having a pen in your hand, you have a pen sitting on that pad of paper, you might write something, you might not, but you're considering whether you might. That's the start, right?
Last question. Did you have a workout routine that was helpful in keeping up your strength and your energy level? Because it's obviously a very arduous shoot.
Yeah, it was the shoot itself. I would give a lot of credit to mate, seriously. That's a good way of getting energy without zapping yourself like coffee does. But no, I think it was just learn as you go and just hang in there. It was like an endurance race. I came to it very late, so I didn't have time, like some of the others, to prepare as much. So I just kind of I stayed in shape by doing it.
What was
by
the time
riding.
difference that the other folks arrived how many weeks before you actually got there to replace Stuart Townsend?
Well, they'd been there for months. I mean,
Really?
rehearsing and stuff, and they'd gotten their roles much earlier, so they'd begun studying. I got there, and within a couple of days, I was shooting, and they were already shooting, so I didn't really get to rehearse at all as far as working with the director and stuff.
Thank you.
What book are you reading?
I'm reading a collection of stories by Mario Benedetti, Uruguayan writer.
Mm-hmm. Can you spell Benedetti for me?
Spell it?
Yeah.
Benedetti. You know, yeah, but you can. Has it been translated into English?
Benedetti, I'm sure.
That's great.
It is?
That's a great writer. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you explain that kiss to Susana Jimenez? That was when you went to the farm.
Did you see that?
Yeah, I mean, that was the talk of Argentina.
She wasn't there.
The most famous TV show in Argentina, and he kissed the host, who is this, woman we admire, right?
Yeah, she's legendary.
Then what happened?
Yeah.
Then what happened?
And then I think you kissed her again, right?
I did.
Nice.
And you gave him a signed poster from all his favorite soccer teams. So,
Oh, you're kidding.
yeah.
All right, there you have it. That was Viggo Mortensen answering our questions, being genuinely curious about us too. You could even hear him speak if some Spanish there with one of the interviewers who is from, I guess, an Argentinian paper. They were talking a little bit about stuff. I have no idea what they were actually talking about. However, it was a genuinely enjoyable interview as opposed to others, and it was longer too.
Right. Yeah, it was longer at Viggo. I have to say one of my favorite points of it was the annoying lady whatever that always asks where their shire is.
Annoying lady number one, always the first one.
The first most annoying lady. So journalist that asked that she always asks the same question. And when she asked Viggo Mortensen, all he did was ignore the question. And he just rambled about how life is a journey. And she's like, yeah, but how about for you? And she gave an example of, I think, Sean Austin or something. Somebody's like, his shire is blah, blah, blah. And Viggo Mortensen was like, kind of stopped for a second, and then he just rambled again, and just did, and he just clearly did not care for her question, and so he was just going to ramble about life being a journey.
His answer was kind of like, wherever you go, there you are.
People you're with,
right?
Yeah.
that's kind of like what his answer was. He's like, I don't have time for this guy.
Wherever you go, there you are. Yeah.
This silly yeah.
So I saw it as some real low key trolling because Viggo is a smart guy, so I think he knew it was being asked, and he just didn't care for the question, and so he's just trolling her. That's what I'm going with. So
yeah, you're probably right. Hey, we left off before we listened to the interview with Stuart Townsend being replaced by Viggo Mortensen, and him mentioning in this interview, you heard that he came on like right as principal shooting was beginning, and so here's what Stuart Townsend has had to say about this. This is actually just from the Wikipedia page. So let me read that. He said, I was there rehearsing. Okay, and real fast, Stuart Townsend is 10 years younger than Viggo Mortensen. 14 years younger than Viggo Mortensen, if I remember right. I think he's Viggo's.
How old was Viggo when Viggo was filming?
Let's see, they started in 99. He would have been, let me get there really super fast. I missed the tab. He was born 58, so he would have been 41. He's 64 now. Stuart Townsend would have been 27. So big difference in age. And I think that's what Peter Jackson knew didn't like. But here's what Stuart Townsend said. I was there rehearsing and training for 2 months, then was fired the day before filming began. Oh, man.
Wow.
So brutal. After that, I was told they wouldn't pay me because I was in breach of contract due to not having worked long enough. I'd been having a rough time with them, so I was almost relieved to be leaving until they told me I wouldn't be paid. I have no good feelings for those people in charge. I really don't. The director wanted me and then apparently thought better of it because he really wanted someone 20 years older than me and completely different. Well, I don't think Peter Jackson probably had anything to do with paying him or not, but
yeah, that sounds like a lawyer maneuver to me.
Yeah, for sure. They just didn't want to pay him anything for it, and he probably wanted as much as he could get. I mean, that's where you said, yeah, I have my lawyers, they have their lawyers, and they're going to go after it. But yeah, he was just way too young. So anyway, I'm going to show you real fast. If you're on YouTube, you can see pictures that I've got of Viggo Mortensen. Let me add this to our feed here. At the premiere. Sorry, right there. So you can see the G4 TV sign, G4 TV. They've been around. So they did an interesting thing. Is like when I was talking to Viggo, they stuck their. You can see that's me on the left. I don't know who that is on the right, but that's Viggo. You know, he's like, he's actually looking at you wanting to talk. He's like trying to understand what you're asking, things like that. Like just in those eyes, he was very. He was a nice guy. But they stuck their microphone right in his face while I was talking with him, and I was kind of like, what is going on here? Is this allowed? Is this like proper etiquette? Can you say,
did they ask him anything, or they just wanted to hear what he was saying?
Oh, they just wanted to hear what he was saying. They just wanted to get a recording of it and had their camera, right? Because they had a full camera. I had a microphone too, and I would have to go back and forth with it.
Right.
And so I think I was talking at this point. So we've got that picture. That's him there once again.
What did it cost you to prepare for the whole thing, Jonathan?
Nothing. Well, no, I had an iPod. I think I bought this microphone that I used because I needed something to record, and I didn't want to use like a tape recorder because I couldn't get it digitally then. So I got this little third-party microphone for my iPod. I did that. My brother worked in videography, so he had a better camera. So I used a better camera. And in fact, here I can show you. Let's see here. Let me find the clip of the video. Oh, dang it! Did I lose it? Yeah, I lost it. I'm gonna have to refind it. I must have closed it down. Of Viggo Mortensen at the premiere, and yeah, here we go. Let me add this to the screen. And so yeah, no, it didn't cost me anything to really be there. It was just New Line Cinema. They did a great job of involving all the fans, even the ones who didn't like the films and who were antagonistic in a way to their their studio. Like we were the ones with the complete list of film changes, with the ones saying, here's every change you're getting wrong in the Lord of the Rings. We were the ones known as the purist, yet they still had no hesitation in engaging us. Right. And so despite our differences, we still respected them and we still enjoyed our time with them. And so maybe I'll release this video here at another point and talk about the interviews. I have no idea what we're talking about. You can see the G4 microphone there. I'm the one talking with them and they like, here's your talking. Here's my microphone. I don't know. So anyway, yeah, that was that. I don't know.
Jonathan gets the short end of the stick on the show business side.
It's waving like all the fans like Viggo. But that was a fun event. That was a good time. And he was one of the better interviews. Like I mentioned before, we'll eventually release Bernard Hill and
it's pictures like that remind me of how long ago this was, because this is 20 years. That's a long time.
It is a long time. Michael, you were young then.
I wasn't any better looking though. So
no, that's totally true. I was though. I didn't have gray hair. I didn't have 4 kids and gray hair. That's for sure. In fact, this was like 5 months after I got married. So nice. It was a fun event. All right, so we're going to jump into our extended podcast. We're going to talk a little bit about Aragorn and Viggo Mortensen. There you go. It said peace and bye and a little handshake, and that was it. So we're going to jump in our extended podcast, which you can get by going to theonering.com/member, become a member there. Join us on Discord, all that good stuff, man. When I say this over and over again, I know there's always new people listening, and there's those who binge listen.
Mm-hmm.
Never said binge listen before. They binge. There you go. They binge. You're the gluttonous listeners, and we appreciate you. But if you really want to get even more, particularly like guys, I will say the On Fairy Story stuff we had is really worth it when you become a member. We go deeper into discussion and extended podcasts. We go through some of the things that you guys had questions about. Totally worthwhile. I'm a completely unbiased opinion on that too. So go to thewonder.com/member, become a member, and join us in our extended podcast. What will we jump into right here, right now?
Bye, freeloaders.